Gaburuna mambo. Mwari baba muri kumusoro kudenga. Kama swara nasu kuna matai. Chinamatira nyika yeZimbabwe. Kuti zvayatarisana nazvo inogona kuzozvikunda here. Baba ndaida kuti mununure vana veZimbabwe avo vakwanise kudzivirirwa muhurumende yakashata iri kudenha dzimwe nyika kuti munyika medu mugogona kuita hondo vagona kutiza nemari dzavakaba. Saka ndakumbira baba kuti dai imbomisai hondo kuti tinyatsovabata zvakanaka vanhu nenyaya yekuti vada kutiza nemari. Saka ndosiya muteuro wangu wanhasi ndichivhura live yangu. Amen. Tavhura nemunamato kuti ndiri kuona vanhu varikuda kutiza nemari muZimbabwe. Vanhu vari kutiza nemari. Makadii maswera sei vana veZimbabwe? Hanzi kana tapedza kunamata tobva tapinda dhiri hora iro vanogara mudhiri hora rembanje. Gara mudhiri hora iro vanogara mudhiri hora rembanje. Gara mudhiri vakomana vanogara mudhiri hora rembanje. Gara mudhiri musatambe navo vanogara mudhiri hora rembanje. Gara mudhiri hora vakomana una dhiri hora rembanje vanogara mudhiri musatambe navo vanogara mudhiri hora rembanje. Vanhu hanzi taganai, ngatitaganai tiri tichiwanda wanda naye. Tira kusvika nezura tinombosvika namba yakanaka. Hanzi tavapo yarova nezura tinosvika namba yakanaka. Anyway, so far tiri mu47 vanhu 53 tapinda. Ngatitaganai tagai vanhu vauye because vanhu vazhinji vanoda kuzoenda kunoteerera chachimunya. Vasikade kuteerera pana pakanaka. Tinenge tichibvunza mubvunzo tichimhoresana vatete flow makadii. Tichimhoresana tichinzwa kuti ndiani kudzai ichimutsi zviri kufamba here. Handina kukwanisa kumhoresa vese vatanga kupinda. Ndachiteura ndachinamata kuti ndiri kuona vanhu vatiza. Ndiri kuona vanhu vatiza muZimbabwe asi ndiri kuona vanhu vatiza nemari. Handi muri kuona. Saka mwe munhu aindibvunza zvikanzi ko Mnangagwa sei achikoisa uye vanoti Mutuli achiziva kuti haana zvaanokwanisa kuita. Finance haadzigone. Ndikati aiwa Mutuli ndiye ari kutiza nemari izvi. Imimi hamusi kuziva kuti ndopari kubuda nemari. Ndopari kubuda nemari naMutuli. Ndiye ari kufacilitata kuti mari dzibude muZimbabwe. Vana Mnangagwa vasekiwe mari dzavo. Kana votiza vanongosimuka nemabhegi vachikoro vachitiza vachienda kunodya mari dzavari kuba. Saka let's be very careful maZimbabweans. Vamwe vakaitaura kuti ma-elections akaitwa akapera, chisi zvakaitwa zvakapera. Taane problem. We cannot push up to 2028, ladies and gentlemen. I am telling you, that is nada. We need to push now. We don't need to push for 2028. Because if you look at Zimbabwe is a collapsed country. It's a collapsed country right now. It is a collapsed country. It's a country that is not going to sustain a war. They are trying to provoke certain countries to fight a conflict. This is why you see, I was laughing today when someone was writing that Zimbabwe was given yakapuwa ndege neRussia. Some helicopter about 30 zvakapuwa neRussia. Zvikanzi vakapiwa nhunzi dzekutakurisa tsvina vachienda dzekutakurisa matuzvi vachienda nawo somewhere, nekutakura marara nemanyowa vachienda kugarden. Zvikanzi look now. Yeah, good. Good. Zvikanzi look now. America yabva yauya kuRussia, yabva yauya kuZambia. Ndobva yasvika ndobva yapa nyuchi dzinoruma. Hanzi yapa nyuchi dzinoruma. Vamwe vedu ava vakapuwa madhakota ekutakurisa matuzvi, ekutakurisa manyowa vachienda kumagarden vachitakura zvinhu zvavanenge vachitakura, hameno zvinhu zvavanenge vachitakura. Because so far Yesterday, I was pissed off by that assistant chief inspector, dispo for Chivu, whose car, she was given a car last year. So most of these dispos, they are given these cars because when they retire, they take them home. There are cars that they are given for retirement. So this car was involved in an accident. I saw a chief superintendent crying. She was crying. And instead of crying for the police officers who were injured in that accident, she was crying about her car. She knows that that is the car she was supposed to take home on a retirement. So she was crying about the car. Instead of crying to say, look, ambulance must come and ferry an injured police officer, or those helicopters which were given to Zimbabwe as ambulances must have been summoned to ferry the injured or to airlift the injured to hospital. This reminded me long time ago when we were growing up. Do you know that when we were growing up in Zimbabwe, we used to see white people, those farmers, whites, they used to drive around with their dogs on the front seat. If you wave them for a lift, they will stop. Because varungu avana vambosiya munhu achiweva lift. I've never seen it in Zimbabwe. When I grew up in Zimbabwe, when we were growing up, we saw whites driving cars with the dogs on the front seat. If you wave for a lift, they will stop and you jump at the back. They don't take their dogs to the back. No, no, no. So, in case of an accident, those farmers, they used to cry a lot if they survive. And the dog, if the dog dies, they will cry a lot. They don't cry about those black people who were on the back of the car who got injured. No, 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 no. They used to cry about their dogs. To say, oh dear, my dog died. You understand? So, I likened the situation to this chief superintendent of Chivu. She cried about a car, a damaged vehicle, instead of crying about an injured police officer who was supposed to have been urgently taken to hospital. But she was busy crying, going right round the car, crying, touching the vehicle, saying, my car, this and that. Instead of my police officer. This is the nature of ZANU-PF, ladies and gentlemen. One, they are stealing, they are taking money out of Zimbabwe. Two, they are preparing for their retirement. They are giving each other a state-of-the-art vehicle so that they retire with them. So these 5 years that they stole from us, they want to ensure that they consolidate their stealing. This is why you see, even Mnangagwa has to appoint his children. But this is the last supper. They are not certain about when their last supper ends. But I am telling you, from the look of the things, his end is near. Mnangagwa's end is near. If you look at the cabinet, look at the cabinet he just appointed. Look at every minister appointed there. He has got a link to the Mnangagwa family. The nephews, the aunts, his children, and his close family members are the ones who dominate the government at this juncture. It means a lot. It means a lot. Because he is practicing nepotism openly, without fear. I wonder where those guys who were running around saying fair. Pane kampana kamukainzi fekani kamukakaonda kakabuda this kakaonda so kakaonda singaiti. I think he's emancipated that boy. He has been toying ashita oh yere oh double mark time double mark time wakambota chuto munoza ndutora double mark time. He was like always lifting his thighs parallel to the ground. When you are doing double mark time, we look at the thighs, are they parallel to the ground? It's taking as up, heat, up, heat, up, heat, up, heat, heat, up, heat, heat, up, heat, double mark time, E, up, heat, up, heat, up, heat, up. So that double mark time, when you are doing it, we look at your thighs being parallel to the ground. I saw that boy, Achita double mark time. He was doing double mark time per rally 𝗭𝗶𝗺𝗀𝗽 with his thighs. His thighs were going, I think, 45 degrees, which they were not like parallel to the, they were more than parallel to the ground. His thighs were chest. You know, double mark time, your hands must be on your chest, which is my thighs are parallel to the ground. And the boy was not parallel to the ground, was 45 degrees to the ground. That means my thighs, my knees, they were coming to his chest. I should have double mark time. I looked at the boy, and the boy, if you look at him, he's not healthy. It's not because he's not feeling well. No. It's because he has got nothing to eat. This is probably why he was just going, attending rallies, 𝗭𝗶𝗺𝗃 rallies, every rally for chicken and chips from Chicken Inn. So this is the boy I am talking about. He hasn't been awarded by Emmerson Mnangagwa. I thought he was going to be Minister of Toying, but he got no ministry. Instead, Mnangagwa had to appoint Studio 263 actress as Minister of ICT. Quite shocking, quite shocking. So his son became Deputy Minister of Finance. I've stated here that, look, it's because they are looking for leeways to take their loot outside Zimbabwe. They know that their time is up. Their time is up. So he is practicing nepotism openly. I wonder where is the Mutsvangwas, where is the Matemanda that he has, those war veterans who made a lot of noise when Mugabe was removed from power. Hey, Mugabe was now letting his wife this. Mugabe was appointing his nephews. Mugabe never appointed his son. He never appointed his daughter or his child into government. But he had close relatives in the government. And when Mnangagwa came, we never thought that one day Mnangagwa would appoint his sons. He has got 3 sons in ministerial positions. One is a nephew. 2 is his son, Deputy Minister of Finance, and the 3rd one is a Deputy Minister of, I think, Tourism, something of that sort. Then he has got the likes of Chitando Vasukuru, Vakarora Vasukuru, they are planned in there as ministers, because they are my girlfriends, Anna Barbara Rhodes and so forth. Pakaipa guys. General Chwenga Rufara Nazwere. General Chwenga is a person of no integrity. You understand what I mean? He is not intelligent enough to see whatever is happening around him. So don't base on him. He's just a chancer. If his soldiers were alert during Mugabe's removal, in fact, if his soldiers didn't want Mugabe to be removed, by today General Chwenga will be a gravy. You understand what I mean? He will be probably in prison for treason, trying to remove a sitting president by force. So quite a lot could have happened. So don't base on him. He is not that intelligent. He is not someone who people can base on to say he needs to sanitize the issues of Zimbabwe. So what I'm saying is, you have seen Mnangagwa now practicing nepotism, favoring or granting in politics, granting his children in politics, ministries, granting his business associates and friends like Mthuli into ministries. This is a business relative. So you have seen that he is appointing his relatives and friends in 𝗭𝗶𝗺𝗃 or in ministerial positions for which outsiders might be better qualified. There are better qualified people for those positions. I was even shocked seeing Bavaza defending the appointment of Mnangagwa's son as Deputy Finance Minister. There are certain laws that have been breached by Mnangagwa by appointing unqualified people into these positions. We know that whatever he has done, he has formed an illegitimate government, a nepotistic government that will never work. Anzi, I born allo for me. I'm not sure. Anzi, I don't know. Let me not go into that. But what I'm saying is about nepotistic politics being practiced by Emmerson Mnangagwa in his Last Supper, Dance of Last Supper. This is Dance of Last Supper. Because nowadays, if you look at the legal framework of Zimbabwe, is corrupted with the judges who are bribed, and nothing can come out of our courts. So Zimbabweans are left with one option, only one option. Let's go, 𝗭𝗶𝗺𝗯𝗯𝘄𝗲. Hey, my message is actually kumanya. I don't know if there's a message yapinda pana banzi. No, nice. 𝗭𝗶𝗺𝗯𝗯𝘄𝗲 to stay away like 2 weeks. Right. I was waiting for that question because I've heard a lot of people advocating for staying away. Right. Let's go to Zimbabwe. It's a country with 99.9% unemployed people. So if you say those people must stay away, I don't know where do they, what are we supposed to stay away from? Because when we used to work, when there were jobs in Zimbabwe, people would close companies. People would stay away from work. And 2-3 days, the country's economy will be crying, will be reeling with the shortages and so forth. And the government won't make money. So today, the people are self-employed. People are selling tomatoes. They are selling onions on the streets to raise money to send their children to school. After 4 decades of lying by ZANU-PF that they will avail free education to the country. I'm not sure. So, quite a lot of things. We cannot, Zimbabweans cannot stay away at the moment. Because I'm not sure. They can't stay away from their own businesses. Because they are selling tomatoes. If they close that market for 2-3 days, some of them won't get money to pay to pay rent, to pay electricity, to pay water. They need to send children to school. They need to eat as well. So staying away, I'm not sure whether it works. Mnangagwa indegero mababiro. He is, even if you listen to his addresses now, he's a confused man. He doesn't know what to do. He is there, appointed himself as president, and whatever he is saying now, it doesn't make sense. He has got no clue what to do. Look at the cabinet itself. There is no new person you can say this can steer this cabinet into the positive direction. That cabinet is a null and void cabinet, is a useless cabinet. Those people are useless in that government. No one has got the prowess to drive the government to stardom. So, because it is just a nepotistic government that has never been approved by even ZANU-PF people, they are quiet. You can't even hear them talking. They are just quiet, they are watching. They are praying for the removal of Emmerson Mnangagwa right now. They are crying because they said he is waiting for SADC call to talks. It's not going to help him. It's not going to help him. Because he is pinning hopes on President Nelson Chamisa. As Comrade 𝗭𝗶𝗺𝗪𝗀 SADC. SADC not yet. Can I Shinga Buddha then will tell you. The truth is people must accept reality. Nothing will change anytime. Yeah, it's the problem with the Zimbabweans is we don't refer to history. I like the Harvard referencing system. when you read someone's or when you write your articles, if you borrow ideas from someone, reference them. Reference them. So that type of referencing, it is giving me opportunity to look back or to reflect on what Zimbabweans have gone through, and before that, what transpired before that. Yesterday, when I was making a presentation, I clearly spoken about 1979 elections, when war escalated in our country. Ian Smith held elections in 1979. Those elections ushered Bishop Tendeka Mzorewa, as Prime Minister of Zimbabwe Rhodesia. There was a new country that was formed, known as Zimbabwe Rhodesia. It was formed in 1979, and its Prime Minister, after winning those elections, was Bishop Tendeka Mzorewa. So I want you to refer back to that era. When Goliras were consulted about what had happened, they said they were not recognizing those elections, and they were escalating the war to ensure that democracy returns to the country. So the United Nations was involved. Probably Africa Union was also involved. And they sat down. They went into talks. Remember, the Lancaster House talks were part of the talks that that brought free and fair elections in 1980, after we had a bogus election in 1979. If you guys refer to that era, United Nations and all the political parties in our country, including the Rhodesian Front, they sat down. Nkomo was there, Mugabe was there, Ian Smith was there, Wanamdara, I think Mamdara was there as well. They sat down. They came up with an agreement that in February 1980, they were going to hold fresh polls. It was just a year after the other elections were done. So we are in that era again. People say history repeats itself. We are in that era again, where a bogus election was held and no tabulation of proper results to announce the winner was done. And it was done haphazardly, which elections were condemned in a similar manner with the 1979 elections. And in 2023 elections, they were condemned by all organizations where Zimbabwe is an affiliate. Comrade, I'm not sure. People are crying here. As Comrade block this kind of people. No. If we block those people, we don't see the other part of the... because what we are doing here is brainstorming. We are brainstorming. When you are brainstorming, you must see from all angles, from all directions, because ideas come from all directions. This is... some people are saying, accept the election results and forge ahead, prepare 2028. We are saying the process that produced these results, it's not a democratic process that can usher legitimacy to the current government. Even if you look at the setup of the cabinet, you can simply tell that there are no real players in that cabinet. Even, I think, ZANU-PF, they've refused to take positions in that government because they know it's like a Zimbabwe Rhodesian government which was headed by Mzorewa, which did not last for a year. You understand what I mean? I don't think any Seni ZANU-PF guru would jump into this grave cabinet. It's not going to last for a year because international community is so powerful. What I'm suggesting here, or what I think is going to happen here now, what I think is going to happen here, AU, African Unit, then SADC and the United Nations, they are going to they are not going to call for re-election at this juncture. No. They are going to call for a dialogue. They are going to invite political parties which are in parliament today, or political parties which took part in the election. They are going to be invited on a round table. Then they are going to ask them, as I mentioned yesterday, that there is a likelihood of a transitional government that would oversee preparation of fresh pools to be held probably in a year. Because Zimbabwe has to assume the chairmanship of SADC next year. When the SADC does not recognize the results of this election, there is nowhere SADC can hand over chairmanship to Zimbabwe. You understand what I mean? So they need that issue solved, so that when Zimbabwe's time comes to be chairperson of SADC, they will simply hand it over to a legitimate leader of Zimbabwe. Because once they hand over power of SADC chairmanship to an illegitimate president, according to what they said, then they've destroyed the SADC region. So SADC countries are avoiding that. This is why I am saying the likelihood of a transitional government to run the affairs of Zimbabwe, preparing for fresh pools away from ZEC, away from ZANU-PF, away from 𝗶𝗶𝗺. That is the likelihood of or the outcome of SADC deliberations or the Troika SADC meeting. It's either they are going to sit down and propose a transitional government, or they will sit down and propose a government of national unity. But they are not going to say President Chamisa won the elections. They are not going to say Mnangagwa won the elections, because the results are not recognizable. The results are null and void. The process that produced the results, no matter which camp is claiming to be a winner, are null and void. So I want you Zimbabweans to understand that we are in a 1979 debacle where Bishop Abel Tendeka Mzolewa declared himself a winner of a 1979 election and became Prime Minister of Zimbabwe, Rhodesia. That country just survived for a year. We had fresh pools the following year in February, which ushered ZANU-PF, and Mugabe became president of that country, of Zimbabwe. I think those who are pushing for Zimbabweans to accept a flawed result, a flawed election result, they are enemies of the state. I cannot go and say, let Zimbabweans accept the outcome of a flawed election process. Even international community, they cannot push for that. To say, Zimbabweans, you must accept it. They are not going to accept that. So, the issue that we are facing now are the issue of how much money is being taken out of the country by Mnangagwa after appointing 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏 and his son. 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏 being a close friend, a business associate from Mnangagwa. The Barbican Bank was Mnangagwa's bank, and 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏 was just a front runner. And that bank collapsed. He ran away to Switzerland with the monies that were deposited, particularly by civil servants. Because I still remember when the Barbican Bank was formed, forms were given to civil servants to say your salaries will go into the Barbican Bank. A lot of people changed, and that Barbican Bank folded. 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗏 ran away from Zimbabwe with all the deposits, with all people's money. And he is now back as finance minister. He has been finance minister for the past 6 years, where he said, judge me in 6 months. 6 months elapsed. It's now 6 years. We have never seen anything from that gentleman. He failed to deliver. What he has been doing just for 6 months was to make sure that he moves large sums of money, the Mnangagwa's loot, into Switzerland. So this is what has been happening, guys. Whatever is being done now, it's like whatever being done by this government, it's illegal. It's illegitimate. This is why you see even those who were bribed into these positions, it was an illegal act of setting up a government. You understand? So, Mnangagwa is irresponsible. This is what I can say here, that he is irresponsible. Giving monies, especially to judges, to alter their behaviors when they approach to the issues of justice, it's irresponsible. This is why you see there is this guy from CID, I think it's Law and Order, who wanted to abduct Mukwananzi last time, and he has arrested Honorable Kademaunga, tried to send him to court, and he is behind the arrest of Ostalos again. And remember, he's the gentleman who tortured Madzibaba Veshandugo. He tied 2 bricks on his balls, and Madzibaba Veshandugo could not walk. He collapsed, almost died. He was tortured by that gentleman. So, I am saying everything that is happening is in the vicinity of the international community. They are seeing whatever is happening to Zimbabwe. If Mnangagwa had actually won elections, he could not go on that drive of trying to incarcerate every elected member of 𝗭𝗶𝗺𝗃𝗃. You have seen the deputy mayor has been arrested again. She is probably appearing in court tomorrow. Ostalos has been arrested. He is appearing in court tomorrow as well. Honorable Kademaunga appeared yesterday in court. A lot of senior officials in the 𝗭𝗶𝗺 are being arrested, and some have left the country. This is what we call a collapsed state. Zimbabwe is a collapsed state. It is a collapsed state. It knows that it paid bribes to the judges to alter their behavior when they are dealing with the issues of justice. This is why you see ZANU-PF is fighting to arrest as much as possible members of parliament and incarcerate them in a similar way they did to Job Skull. Because this probably prevent effectiveness of 𝗭𝗶𝗺 in parliament. Because the current parliament, people were saying, why should you go there when you don't recognize the results? Remember last time when I said, we have got liberated zones. We are like in a war. When you are in a war, you have got liberated zones, and you need to keep those liberated zones. You cannot just give away those liberated zones. Because remember, guys, there are different types of war. There are different types of war that we are waging. We are waging warfare. We are waging lawfare. We are waging different types of war. The wars that we are waging right now are recognized in the 1964 Geneva Conventions. If you go and read the Geneva Conventions, several states, they created these conventions. It was like an international agreement that regulated acceptable behavior during a war. We are in a war. There are accepted behaviors which we should abide by in this war. You see, ZANU-PF has been engaging in verbal war with Zambia. It's a type of war. And that type of war is recognized by the 1864 Geneva Conventions. These conventions from 1864, it was like amended about 3 or 4 times. In 1906, they amended it. In 1929, they amended it. In 1949, they amended it. The amendments are to accommodate the current situation that we find ourselves in and the nature of wars that we are fighting. So these agreements, they prohibit torture. They prohibit rape. They prohibit genocide. They prohibit mutilation. They prohibit slavery and other crimes against humanity. So if you go to Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe already is in a war. ZANU-PF declared war against the citizens of a country for refusing to vote it. So when they declare this war against the citizens of Zimbabwe, ZANU-PF is using torture. That torture is prohibited by the Geneva Conventions. You cannot arrest people and torture them. I'm talking about that police officer or whoever who replaced Makedenge in the law and order. That gentleman who tortured Matsibaba Shandugo because of his political beliefs. ZANU-PF declared a war. They said, we are in a war. And in that war, you saw them barricading roads. They were attacking President Chamisa's convoy. They were attacking 𝗭𝗶𝗺 people. They went on to kill a number of 𝗭𝗶𝗺 activists. That means we are in a war. And that war prohibits torture. ZANU-PF is continuing torturing 𝗭𝗶𝗺 activists, 𝗭𝗶𝗺 officials. Women are being raped. ZANU-PF is sending these youth militias to rape women. And women were raped before elections as well. And the rapist, one of the rapists has been appointed as vice president in the cabinet of Zimbabwe. 𝗭𝗶𝗺𝗯𝗯𝘄𝗲, being a rapist, has been appointed as vice president of Zimbabwe. And we still have a docket opened in Australia on Mnangagwa, who raped a minor, Susan Mutami, and that record still stands. And Zimbabwe, ZANU-PF, the FAIRS, they have voted a rapist as a president. You understand? So, the Geneva Conventions of 1949 is amended. It prohibits this rapist to hold office as president. Mnangagwa must be in prison for rape. And 𝗭𝗶𝗺𝗯𝗄𝗲 must be in prison right now for rape. Imagine he was soliciting for sex from a minor. A minor regarded Mohad as a blesser, but a blesser who came soliciting for sex. That is a criminal offense. That is rape. Because he cannot sleep with that minor with consent. And even that minor was protesting, yeah, I need condoms, I need this and that. You can tell that the voice of this minor, he doesn't want to sleep with this old man. This old man is taking an advantage. When you take an advantage, that's rape. So we go on to commit genocide. Genocide itself is barred by the Geneva Conventions. Quite a lot of things or crimes against humanity being committed by ZANU-PF today, which are prohibited by these Geneva Conventions. The convention also stated that prisoners of war must be treated humanly. You go to 𝗭𝗶𝗺𝗃𝗀 today, because ZANU-PF has declared a war against the people of Zimbabwe. How is 𝗭𝗶𝗺𝗃𝗀 being treated? How is Jacob Bongari-Vume being treated in prison? Because these are prisoners of war. ZANU-PF declared war, went on to arrest our members of parliament. And how are they treated in prison? But they must be protected by the Geneva Conventions. You understand what I mean? I know Zimbabweans didn't know that we are in a war. There are quite a lot of different types of wars, guys. First, a very common war that Zimbabweans know is civil war, which is a war which is fought most oftenly with a single country in your country, between or among different groups of citizens. If we decide to take up arms against ZANU-PF government, we will create what we call civil war. And that civil war, I don't think Zimbabweans are ready for any war. And ZANU-PF will never stand any war. Zimbabwe itself, it will never sustain a war. If we decide to say enough is enough, we have been tortured enough, we've been locked up enough, we've been killed enough, and if we decide to take up arms against ZANU-PF government, we will declare a civil war. We will declare a civil war. And in that civil war, I know we are going to win the war and we are going to control the government. We are going to take over the government. And we will recognize, people will recognize us if we win that war as the as the leaders of that country. Definitely civil wars are almost always total wars because each side feels compelled, you feel forced to destroy the enemy's political support. So if this is what you are seeing in our country. I've said, if we decide to take arms against the ZANU-PF government, we will be declaring a war. Because what we need is just to destroy ZANU-PF's political support. So ZANU-PF already has declared a war against the Zimbabweans. Remember, before elections, President Nelson Chamisa was not allowed to move from Harare to Mutare. Roads will be barricaded. Stones will be thrown at his car. Firearms would be shot at his convoy. I think you remember a lot of incidences. One in Bechenaf Bridge and the other incident in Nyanga, where gunshots were heard, where the convoy was attacked by armed bandits of government armed bandits. Because if we had soldiers in our country, they would not go and attack. They would not attack President Chamisa whilst he's doing politics. He's not armed. He doesn't lead a rebel group. But he is someone with a speech that is going to deliver in Nyanga. And ZANU-PF had to barricade roads, so they didn't allow him to go and speak to the people. Imagine, they fear his speech. He doesn't lead a rebel group. So what I'm saying is ZANU-PF, by so doing, it already declared a war against the people of Zimbabwe, against the citizens of a country. And in that war, we saw a number of supporters belonging to 𝗭𝗶𝗺 being murdered by ZANU-PF. But the courts, the police did not arrest the culprits. And despite the culprits being known. So we are in a war. I would describe this as civil war. What you are finding today, what you are seeing today in Zimbabwe, it's a civil war. The problem is the other side being attacked hasn't retaliated, hasn't decided to take up arms to defend themselves. But I assure you, when this continues, people of Zimbabwe or citizens of Zimbabwe will end up arming themselves to defend themselves. They have been under attack by a ruling party that declared a civil war in our country. But Mnangagwa doesn't look at his strength and weaknesses. He doesn't do what we call SWOT analysis to see what is his strength and what are his weaknesses. Because his weaknesses are too many. He doesn't have any strength. Zimbabwe cannot afford the war. Zimbabwe, as it is today, it can't stand any war. It can't defend itself against an aggressor. This is why I'm saying, by the will of God, the people of Zimbabwe are peaceful. Their hospitality is amazing. If they were like the Congolese, if they were like the 𝗭𝗺𝗎𝗇s and the Renamos, definitely there was going to be fire in Zimbabwe. You understand? Because the people who are currently ruling Zimbabwe, they are warmongers. Despite that they are around 85, 90 years old, they still harbor that gorilla war in them. And they still think that they still have this vigor to go back into the bush and fight. 85-year-old men who stand and say, if this doesn't happen, if you don't vote for ZANU-PF, we are going back into the bush and fight. Honestly, an 85-year-old man who can hardly jump 15 centimeters on both legs. Mnangagwa can hardly lift his leg now. At 86 years old. He will stand and instill fear in Zimbabwe youth to say, if you don't vote for ZANU-PF, we will go back into the war to fight. They've forgotten that during that war, most of these Zimbabweans helped that war to be fought. Because it was a guerrilla war. A war which one or both combatants used small, lightly armed militias or militia units rather than professional soldiers. If you look at them, most of them, they just got 3 months training, 2 months training, 1 week training in the bush. And they came to fight in small units and destabilized the country. Because Rhodesia had an organized army. But these small pockets of guerrillas came to fight in Zimbabwe. And they think that that war, no one can do it. To say you can just come in with your AK assault rifles and some bombs, throw them at Mumuzi 2 Brigade and flee into the bush. No, anyone can do that. But our hospitality as Zimbabweans is above excellence. Because if you look at guerrilla fighters, they usually enjoyed the support of the people when they were attacking the government and when they were fighting to topple the Rhodesian government. They enjoyed the support of the people because they were taught, na Mao Zedong theory kuti imimi your fish, people are the water. You cannot survive outside water. So go to the water and tell them we are protecting you. And the water supported them until the war was over. And ladies and gentlemen, because to us, to Rhodesian forces, these were insurgents who were fighting to topple a government. But luckily, they had the support of the masses. I am telling you today, if Zimbabweans decide to take firearms or to arm themselves and fight ZANU-PF government, the people will still support them because they suffered a lot. Enough is enough for Zimbabwe. You understand what I mean? So I am telling you, very different types of wars. Already we are in a war in Zimbabwe. The problem is that the victims, we haven't decided to take up arms and fight back. But as I'm telling you, if things continue in this trajectory, we will eventually decide to say enough is enough. And we can go to the bush, we can fight them. We can fight them. Apana chinhu chinoshamisa kunorwa hondo. Apana chinoshamisa. We saw hondo. We grew up during the war. We saw it. We saw the guerrillas. We saw the Rhodesian front. Pamanzwa ndichimba chikafu chenunzi madhodhi. Chikafu chenunzi matuzvi. Chikafu chenunzi. Magorira ataiona vaimba kudaro. Vachimba akabata AK achichema amaenda kanaka. Achimba zimatsvuka kwandakaita maiko. Ndichafa nenyere nindofusirwa pasi. Vachimba magorira. In 1978, ndakaona one of gorilla being shot and killed. Anga auya kuinga chimoko. I still remember that incident. I was there. Auinga chimoko. Ndobva atengeswa kukanzi mune mugorira apinda mane pfuti. Saka Rhodesian front akangoya ndobva wapwanya dhoko chitemero wachibva wapinda. Saka kupinda kwakaita yakabva aona masoja musikana uya ndobva atora blanket ndobva avhara mugorira uya. Saka masoja wabva wafunga kuti pamwe uda yacha open fire tikafa panapa. Ndobva wangosasikwa vese vachibva vafa. Mukadzi ainzi aniko? Zita rake ndaimuziva mukadzi wacho ainzi Nati. Ainzi Nati mukadzi, but I forgotten the gorilla kuti ainzani. But Blazie akafa triple. Vakatakura zvese nechi-AK chake vakasimudza vakakanda muchimotikari. Vakatakurwa vese kuti mukadzi nemugorira wake vachikandwa vachiendwa navo. Vakafambwa navo mapurazi vachiratidzwa mumaruzevha. Vachiratidzwa mumaruzevha kunzi yai muone gorira tauraya gorira. Unozati vanhu vazhinji vaifunga kuti gorira vaifunga kuti chigudoka. Vakazoshamisa kuona munhu vakanga vaurawa nemukadzi ainzi Nati. Vakanga vaurawa vese. Vakasasikwa triple. Andi muri kuona. Pakamboita runyararo unzati pavakaburitswa chienda ropa zvaranga rakaita Mumbai momosoka. Yatakanyarara tiri vana vadiki tichitarisa so hondo iyi. Afa chikafu chenunzi. Andimona. Saka, ZANU-PF, it must be aware. Let ZANU-PF know. There is nothing special that they did. That war they fought was just a gorilla war. Anyone can fight a gorilla war. With the training or without training. But the masoja yamapurisa eZimbabwe vakanetswa nana Chidhumo nemagadheri takanetswa nana Chidhumo vanga vasina kutrain. Munhu anga akatrainwa paipai ndichauke anga ari presidential guard. Kuya Musariri anga ari kusupport unit. Nguluve takangonzwa kuti amene anga ari muzipura here whatever, I don't understand. Ndakangodzwa nevamwe. But out of the 4, Chidhumo yakanga ingoriwo mbavha. Masendeke yakanga ariwo mbavha. But Zimbabwe yakadedera because of Masendeke and Chidhumo. Kokuzoti kana tapanduka vana shepherd. Magorilla readers. Tazvipira kuti ropa rangu muchariwana pasi pemureza weZimbabwe. Ropa rangu muchariwana pasi pemureza weZimbabwe. Izvozvo zvinofana kusenda a clear message to ZANU-PF. What they are doing now that can lead Zimbabweans to uprise against them. We can take up arms and we can fight them. There is nothing special. There is nothing that can stop us doing that. But we wanted a free and fair election. We wanted transition of power from ZANU-PF to a new government without spilling blood. We don't want blood spilling. We don't want people killed in our country. We want civilians be protected at all costs. Because once we decide to fight as gorillas, there are quite a number of things that will happen, ladies and gentlemen. There are quite a number of things that will happen. Other countries, they will call us freedom fighters. Other countries, they will call us that we are practicing terrorism. We will be labeled terrorists if we decide to protect ourselves. If we decide to protect our fathers and mothers being butchered by ZANU-PF on a daily basis, we will be labeled terrorists. Some will label us gorillas. But if you decide that a gorilla and a terrorist, are they different? No. Remember, during the war, these freedom fighters you call freedom fighters today, these people, they were happy to be labeled terrorists because they were fighting a gorilla war. Why took a famba? They used to call themselves Matororo. Matororo is just a Shona word for terrorists. They were happy to be called terrorists. Very happy to be called terrorists. Because they practiced terrorism whilst they were gorillas. Some people would argue that gorillas are not terrorists. But they were terrorists. They were happy to be called Matororo. Because they were fighting against the government. They fight against the Rhodesian military force. They went on to provoke the regime to fight back. And the regime fought back and the war was full-blown. If you contrast the gorilla war with the terrorism, you will find that in terrorism, the differences between a terrorist and a gorilla war, the difference only is that in terrorists, they don't choose who dies. They just go and kill. Even civilians will be killed. People will suffer. During the gorilla war, a lot of civilians were killed. The Rhodesian forces were responsible for killing civilians. These gorillas were responsible for killing civilians. Civilians, some of them were caught on crossfire. Mazano madhara vacheka miromo vachiti hanzi muri vatengesa vachekwa nzeve vamwe vachifusirwa vari vapenyu. I spoke to mai vakakurira kuMount Selinda when she was crying, talking about 𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗀𝗀, how he killed school children because he suspected them of being sellouts. Hanzi aicheka mutsipa 𝗏𝗁𝗏𝗀𝗀 kunana Mount Selinda aicheka ega mutsipa so achiuraya vanhu. He is a terrorist who survived. You understand? Because the problem with the gorilla war, you won't be able to differentiate whether this is and what is the way forward. This is the way forward I'm talking about, Namatrai. I've stated here from the start that, look, there is a likelihood of SADC summoning stakeholders on the round table. SADC will try to initiate for a formation of a transition government that would run Zimbabwe for 6 months or a year whilst they prepare for fresh polls. ZANU-PF, I know, won't agree to that. ZANU-PF has been proposing for a government of national unity. And I know President Chamisa won't agree to that. So, everything won't work here. Everything won't work here. Everything won't work here. So, if we are saying no to government of national unity, and the ZANU-PF is saying no to transitional government, then there is no agreement between us. But we are under one country where election process has been condemned by the international community. ZANU-PF will not be allowed to run that country. Because next year, ZANU-PF, it needs to, as Zimbabwe, it needs to assume SADC chairmanship. So there is no way SADC would hand over chairmanship to an illegitimate government. So they need to sort it out right now. Hanzi na comrade Nyengs, ndaipesana nemi mukuru murise, ndakasimba mwana wamai. Saka what I'm saying is, I'm saying now that ZANU-PF, before elections, it declared war against the citizens of Zimbabwe. This is what I've said. The war that was declared by ZANU-PF is similar to civil war. Because if you look at 𝗶𝗶C, it was not allowed to move from one place to another. It was treated or handled like a terrorist organization. 𝗶𝗶C president was not allowed to travel to Nyanga to address people in Nyanga. The roads were barricaded, gunshots were fired at his convoy. He went to Bechnaf Bridge. His cars were shotted. We had gunfires there. He was not allowed to travel to any rural home. He tried to go to Gutu. His cars were stoned. This was in full view of the international community and those election observers. People knew we have got an election. And why would ZANU-PF barricade the roads? Why would they not allow 𝗶𝗶C to travel, to go and meet people? Chamisa was not armed, even with a stone or anything at a stake. He was just armed with words. He wanted to go and address his people. Where police cleared Chamisa to address his people, ZANU-PF would ambush all those people who are listening to Chamisa and machete them to death. Quite a number of 𝗶𝗶C activists were murdered prior, pre, during, and after this election. And after the election, you have seen the worsening situation now, that members of parliament who won are being arrested on daily basis. The councillors are being arrested on daily basis. They are appearing before the magistrates. And we know that the magistrates have been bribed. The judges have been bribed before election. They were given cars, they were given money, they have given everything to swear their judgment. They don't see anything wrong. Once you go there, 𝗶𝗶C, you will be sent to prison. So everything that ZANU-PF is doing is provoking a war. It's trying to push Zimbabweans into action so that you guys can erupt and get involved in a civil conflict. And these people, they want to run away. This is why you see Mnangagwa had to appoint his son as Deputy Minister of Finance. And 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏 remains there despite of his short performance. And because 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏 for the past 6 years has been facilitating Mnangagwa's man outside the country. If anything goes wrong today, Mnangagwa will flee the country. He has got loads of man outside the country, whilst the country is suffering. So this is like a summary that I've gone so far to those who just joined us and those who are asking for a way forward. So I was talking of different types of war that we have been pushed into by ZANU-PF. Already Zimbabwe is in a civil war. or Zimbabwe is under terrorist attack. Because our government is behaving like terrorists. So the citizens are under attack from the government. The government, Zimbabwe government is behaving like a terrorist organization. So what do we need to do as people of Zimbabwe when faced with such terrorists? Obvious, we will start to think about arming ourselves to defend our parents, to defend our relatives, to defend our country, which is under attack from a terrorist government. It's like Zimbabwe is under Taliban. These are Talibans operating in Zimbabwe. So it is an unrecognized government. It's an illegitimate regime that has established a government illegally. And it is now busy arresting citizens of a country, torturing them. So remember, I was talking about the Geneva Conference that limit the torture, that prohibit the torture, prohibit in such a war. We are in a war. You understand? So government is like a terrorist group that is fighting the winner. They are trying to suppress Chamisa or trying to instill fear in Nelson Chamisa so that he does not rise to stardom being a winner of this election. So if this continues, ladies and gentlemen, Zimbabwe will be in a total war. A war where we will be involved as combatants. Because what is lacking only in Zimbabwe, I am telling you, the people of Zimbabwe are ready for any action against their government. But what is lacking are the resources. Because the Zimbabwe government is the enemy to the citizens. It is the enemy to the citizens. If I tell you that citizens today, if they find firearms or if they manage to get hold of firearms, there is going to be war in that country. Total war. But what are the effects of war? We understand that if we have got a war will destroy our country. We will witness mass civilian casualties in our country, which we don't want, which we have avoided for the past 23 years. But ZANU-PF has not stopped killing us. If you want to tally the total number of people murdered by ZANU-PF from 2000 up to now, you can reach 15,000 people who died in the hands of ZANU-PF. But we have never tried to retaliate. We have been quiet. We believed in democracy. We had leaders who believed in democracy. We started the journey with Morgan Tsvangirai. He believed in democracy. Then followed by President Nelson Chamisa, a strong belief of God, a strong belief of democracy, who understand that power can be attained without spilling blood. And the Chamisa has always said that we are not here to spill innocent people's blood. We are here to go into an election, a free and fair election, and win election so ZANU-PF can hand over power to the winner. And ZANU-PF has refused. It is declaring war against the winner. This is the attitude of ZANU-PF is the same attitude that caused world wars. Even World War I and World War II, especially World War II, was caused by the arrogance of none other than Adolf Hitler. And we have got Mnangagwa in the mold of Hitler. Mnangagwa in the mold of Idi Amin. What is Mnangagwa doing today is similar to what Idi Amin was doing. And Mnangagwa is now ready to flee the country. I am telling you. I am telling you. We are just lacking support. And Mkoma Murise, apo nasi ndanunuga kuya Titus, onunuga mwana. I am telling you that Zimbabweans are just limited by the resources. If Zimbabweans manage to get resources, They are going to form an army and fight these terrorists. Zimbabwe soldiers are not Zimbabwe National Army soldiers. No. They are ZANU-PF army. They are terrorists terrorizing citizens of a country. So what I'm saying is, let's listen to President Nelson Chamisa at this juncture. He's the man who has preached peace. He's the man who has said, no, why should we go to a war? Why should people fight when we can attain independence peacefully? Because the war ended in 1980. By now, President Chamisa's motorcade should not be attacked. Firearms should not be used in Zimbabwe to scare anyone. People should be singing and dancing because we attained independence in 1980. But that is not the case in our country. That is not the case at all. Because there are reasons why people go to war. If we look at the reasons why the current crop of war veterans went to war, probably they were just greed. They were just looking at the promises after war. What are we going to do? Because today, if Zimbabweans decide to take up arms and fight the Zimbabwe government, it's because of human rights abuses. It's because they are looking for protection. They want to be protected. They want to protect themselves against an aggressor. The Zimbabwe government has become an aggressor. And the citizens of a country, they need protection. And there's no one coming to protect them. They will form groups and protect themselves. They will arm themselves to protect themselves. Because they need protection. If you look at these radical views from these ZANU-PF goons, it's a shame. Already they've sparked a conflict with Zambia. Imagine ZANU-PF confessing that they've got a hand in the killing of 𝗭𝗶𝗺𝗀𝗃𝗀𝗃. That they've got a hand in the killing of 𝗭𝗶𝗺𝗀𝗃𝗀𝗃. Patrick Chinamasa, who is about 85 years old, confessing that when they were going to meetings with Robert Mugabe, they poisoned 𝗭𝗶𝗺𝗀𝗃𝗀𝗃. They killed 𝗭𝗶𝗺𝗀𝗃𝗀𝗃 in Zambia. Those type of views, they spark a war. Already, ZANU-PF is in conflict with the Zambia. We don't know what the Zambians did. This is why I am warning Zimbabweans. This is why I'm warning ZANU-PF government today. That look, it's about access to resources. Once Zimbabweans grab that access to resources, there will be civil war. There will be a full-blown war in our country. I want you to mark my words. That once Zimbabweans grab or have access to resources, there's going to be a war in our country. It's because of the government's behavior, terroristic behavior. So that will be the cause of this war. Because that war will be waged to overthrow an illegitimate authority, an illegitimate regime that has stalled itself as winner of a flawed election. When we say flawed election, we rewind back to pre-election time, where people were sent to say, if we say Pasina Chamisa, we are saying Chamisa Ngaurao. And the video evidence is there. There is a video evidence of that old man addressing people in Bechnaf, telling them, look, we will kill them. We went to war and we will kill them. Intimidating people. Tables were said, people were registered by ZANU-PF. And the people were scared to go and vote. Quite a lot of shenanigans that resulted in the election being said it's a flawed election. And once that election is a flawed election, then there is no legitimate government. And if ZANU-PF continues on this trajectory, it's going to spark a war. And the Zimbabweans, what they just need at this juncture, I am telling you. I've spoken to different people from different places. Some are even outside Zimbabwe. They are bold. They vote to fight. What they just wait is for someone to say, look, I've got these resources. Ndinenyere tu izine pfuti ane kuondo. Ndona chiri chipata-pata wanu kutora pfuti kuenda kunorusazana. But what I'm saying to the people of Zimbabwe, that must come as a last resort. I'm not ruling out war in our country, but I am saying it must be a last resort. Because the intention of citizens today is to go and vote a president of their choice. They want to put in office a government of their choice. They've never been allowed to do that. And the good part is the international observer or the observer missions, the SADC, African Union, European Union, United Nations, the Charter Center, the Carter Center. It's not a charter, it's Carter. It's Carter Center. All these election observation missions, they said the system was flawed. They looked at what the Constitution of Zimbabwe wants, and they looked at the electoral laws of our country. We are a SADC member. They looked at the guidelines of SADC, which were not all followed by ZEC. And it's not about ZANU-PF, it's about ZEC. And we don't know why ZANU-PF is responding on behalf of ZEC. ZEC must be answering its shortfalls, shortcomings. So I am saying, if ZANU-PF continue to act as ZEC, then we know who is running the election. And we will eventually decide to do otherwise. Because war must be the last resort in our country. Armed struggle must be the last resort in our country. And when we do that, as a last resort, we will declare war against the Zimbabwe government. And no one can stop us. I'm talking on behalf of these people who are not satisfied with what is happening. Because if we are a democratic country, we expect democratic principles to happen in our country. If those democratic principles cannot be attained peacefully, then we need to force them. This is why you see they went to war in the 70s. Because they were fighting for democracy. They wanted one man, one vote. After attaining independence, we are not allowed one man, one vote. Prison officers are being forced to vote in front of their bosses. Your vote must be secret. That is a flawed election. Policemen are forced to do postal ballot vote and vote in front of your boss. Your vote must be secret. Why would they be forced to do that? That's why the election has been declared flawed. You cannot do that. When we went to fight in the bush for one man, one vote, when we come back, you are not allowing us to have one man, one vote. My vote must be secret. No one should know who I vote for. If it's not secret now, there is no democracy in the country. So I am saying the people of Zimbabwe, the citizens, they will use it as a last resort. They've tried everything since 2000. They've been killed, arrested, tortured, incarcerated. They tried everything to ensure that ZANU-PF understand that people are crying for democracy. So if there is no democracy now, what are the results? People will resort into war. And a civil war won't be a nice thing for the country. Zimbabwe, as it stands, cannot sustain a war. I am telling you. As it stands, Zimbabwe cannot sustain a war. If people, citizens of a country, declare war against ZANU-PF, against ZANU-PF government, Zimbabwe won't sustain a war. But I am saying to the people of Zimbabwe, if you decide to take up arms against ZANU-PF government, you must have a reasonable hope of success. Because the country as it stands, it doesn't require a prolonged civil war. No. It probably needs the type of Congolese war when Kabila was fighting Mobutu Sese Seko before Mobutu fled. He was marching towards the capital city, Kinshasa, liberating zones. The reason why I said 𝗭𝗶𝗺𝗃𝗃 has got liberated zones. You cannot let them go now. Whilst you've got liberated zones, protect those liberated zones. So, well, if you decide to wage a war against ZANU-PF government, there must be reasonable hope of success to that war. People must sit down and think carefully. I am telling these guys who are crying to say, look, let's go for war. Enough is enough. That guys, you need to sit down now. And you need to decide the good that you hope to achieve. Because that good must outweigh the evil. If you Zimbabweans decide to fight militarily, you must sit down and consider a number of things. And you must see that the good must outweigh the evil produced by a war. Because non-combatants, those are, according to the Geneva Conference, are immune from attack. And ensure that whatever you decide now, you are not going to affect the civilians. You are going just to fight and Saka, the cause of civil war in Zimbabwe, if the citizens decide, the major cause is the problem of transition from electoral loser to electoral winner. A winner of the elections was not allowed to assume office. And there are videos, ZANU-PF claiming that even if we lose, we announce the results that we want and we can rule this country whether you like it or not. So it's now whether ZANU-PF like it or not. Zimbabweans must decide to free themselves militarily. But when you decide that, stay away from issues of terrorism. Protect the civilians, they need your protection. Because you know where your rivalry is coming from. There is no point of making civilians suffer in our country for the sake of power, that we want someone, we want to remove someone from power and we make civilians suffer. No. This is why we are saying no to ZANU-PF government. After making civilians suffer, using the military, deploying military to go and campaign for ZANU-PF, armed soldiers, armed police officers, armed prison officers, going into rural homes, attacking elderly people, forcing them to go and vote for ZANU-PF, which rendered the election flawed. That must not happen in our country. Because there are real costs that goes by the war, ladies and gentlemen. War will cost lives. War will cost infrastructure. War will cost the economy of the country will collapse. So those costs, real costs, must be looked into before people decide a destructive course of action. Because if you look at Zimbabwe at this juncture, there is a wide gap, a very big gap with the other countries. Economically, we are suffering. Even our military cannot afford this war, as I have stated earlier on. So, quite a number of issues are at play here. because that war must not prolong to an extent of being destructive to the civilian society. Because I know, I've seen war in the 70s war. I was there, I saw it. It costed a lot of things. One, crops, people could not do farming, because there was war. And land suffered. What was a road, environment was destroyed. The land suffered, environment was destroyed. People could not do agriculture. So there was destruction of food stores. Shops were destroyed and the property suffered. I am saying what I saw during the war. Although we had probably the strongest currents during that time, dramatically, it changed after war. I'm not sure what happened. During the conflict, Rhodesia managed to sustain a very strong economy. And the Rhodesians, they didn't want people to reel in poverty. They didn't want people to starve. Wanga asina mari na ane mari mu Rhodesia, zvasingaoneke. Wanga asina mari vaidya vachiguta. I don't know. This dramatically changed after we gained independence. If you see, during the war, people were forced to flee their homes. And most of people became refugees in Mozambique. Chimoyo refugee camps. Some of us were refugees inside the country. I was telling one, do you know, during the war, taimuka tichidya, kuseni kuma 4 a.m. munenge madya. Kuti parunosvika kuma 4, 5, 6 dzinenge dzichitubuka pfuti zvakaipa. And hamuzivi kuti munoswera maapapi. We were running away from one place to another, seeking refugee, seeking a safe place to hide. We saw it during the war. We suffered during the war. People were forced to flee from their rural homes. In towns, people fled. Kwakazoiswa ainzi makipi. Vanhu vachigara mumakipi umu kunzi musabatsire magandanga. Vanhu vaibviswa maruzevha vachiiswa makipi. Takazviona during the war. We became refugees internally, while some fled the country into Mozambique and Zambia, where they became refugees. And Saka, if war starts in our country, we know that trade is even affected. Small business, they close. Because government won't be able to meet your needs. They will be channeling all the resources now to try and fight the insurgents. Insurgents in Zimbabwe. And if you look at during the war, Taiwan, the road network suffered. Why took a farm by Maruzeva? Road that tubuka Zimbabwe, makomba Zimbabwe. Road dzisinga fambi gates. So road network suffered. Traveling was often dangerous during the war. So people must be very careful of what they wish and what they want to consider. It can be difficult to access my emergency relief. Emergency relief it was very difficult for us to access emergency relief. And young people were forced to become soldiers, to the extent that those young people, most of these young people, fled to join the guerrillas in Mozambique. Saka, you will find that the war itself, guys, it costs a lot in terms of money. Pounds or dollars, it costs a lot. Because when war starts, arms trade will be the biggest trade. It will be the biggest business. Vanhu vanyika dzine upfumi hwadzo dzinenge zvichida kutengesa nyere chipu vanenge vachiuya vachiita business muchitenga muchirovana. So the armed conflict, it will be prolonged because certain countries, they want to make money with you. Vana munangagwa vanenge vakuchera stere goridhe vachitengesa vachitenga zvombo kuti mutikiyane zvakaipa. So you end up having firearms everywhere. United Nations, please help Zimbabweans. I'm appealing to UN to help Zimbabweans. I'm appealing to AU to help Zimbabweans. I'm appealing to SADC to help Zimbabweans. Because SADC cannot afford a war in Zimbabwe, considering the importance of its location in our region. It must be a stable country. Because once war starts in Zimbabwe, then the people of Zimbabwe will be moved into more poverty by that war. Currently, the people are suffering where there is no war. Imagine kana kwane hondo. Because government will try to tackle the war. The needs of the people won't be met and people will start to suffer. Literally, Zimbabweans will be in dire need of everything and the poverty will take its toll. Because the government of Zimbabwe is even failing to provide safe drinking water. Kokana dzorira dzoputika untakumhanya tiwanda chiridzirana. Kokana vakasabatsira, what's the way forward? This is what I'm saying, Atete Deborah, that from the look of the things, considering the fate of the election, Zimbabweans have decided to take up arms against their government. So this is the way forward. If SADC does not help our cause, if the United Nations does not intervene in our country. Thanks, Ngoma John. SADC must ensure that there is a transition authority, which ZANU-PF is resisting. ZANU-PF wants a government of national unity. We have seen one in 1987. We have seen a second one in 2013. We cannot afford a third one because it brought no change. So the 𝗭𝗶𝗺 or the citizens of Zimbabwe are saying no to government of national unity. And I don't advise them to join the government of national unity. So the issues here now are, if SADC cannot help us, if United Nations cannot assist us, Zimbabweans are deciding to assist themselves. They are saying, let's wage a war. Let's fight them. Because they are the cause, they are causing that war. They are not allowing free and fair elections to be held in a country. So they are pondering their next move. Zimbabweans are saying, let's go for it. And they are sort of in agreement. Unfortunately, 𝗭𝗶𝗺 leadership cannot agree to that. As far as I understand President Nelson Chamisa, he is a Democrat. He is a believer in God. He does not believe in use of force. This is the Chamisa that I know. When Chamisa is armed with words. Aiwa vantaura vakuru vacho. Kana vakamira apo unonzwa kuti pakutaurwa, pakuumwa. Because he's a Democrat. He has found non-violent solutions to this issue. This is why you see he has mounted a diplomatic offensive against the stolen election. And the victory is possible. You understand? So the way forward is what Zimbabweans are saying now. Let's go. Let's square it up with the ZANU-PF. Let's see zvavari kuti hazvo zvakaitika kuti kana vakambozviita situtadza kuzviita nei. Vafana varipo vakazvarwa ma2001 ma23 years. Ukamutaurira zvehondo yakapera 20 years before he was born. Anokutaura nonsense. That's 𝗏𝗁𝗍𝒃. So the long-term impacts of ZANU-PF's refusal to hold a free and fair election, the country will be at war. That's the long-term impact. But when the conflict ceases, we need to count with vachiriponda. Because I'm telling you, when the conflict starts, madhara ese amuri kuona ari 85 years vaithreatena vanhu handei kuhonda, they will all be wiped out. Pamunozopinda in a new Zimbabwe after this conflict, they won't all be there. And what I'm scared of, if there is a war in our country, people knows that those who currently occupy farms, no one bought a farm. So the incoming, if the rebels manage to dislodge the government, all of these people will lose their farms. Because the new people coming in government, they want land. Obvious, they know that you did not buy it. They will just come and say, off you go. Hey, I've got this leave. Tractors now belong to me. This farm now belongs to me. That is the mistake that was done by ZANU-PF. Kwanzi chamisa anotaura nezuro was one. Ana kutaura nei futi. I'm not sure. Yesterday I was not available to follow up. I could have even called the president and find out. But what I'm saying is the impact of the war, the impact or the aftermath of the war, it will change the face of that country. Those who occupy farms today, they did not buy anything. They did not pay for that land. And after any conflict now, the new people coming in, they also want land. And that is the same land. This is why Mdara Tsvangirai vaida a land resettlement program that will ensure when you get land, you get it permanently. Not kuti wabvuta poitika hondo yopera ucharamba uripo, forget and smile, you won't be there. Zviri sei kudzi zviri kufamba here. When you manage to snatch that land from someone else and someone who can still come and snatch it from you, so that will be the aftermath of this war. A lot of things will change. Kuchasara vazhinji vava varombo. And mari dziri kunze kwenyika dzavari kutakura vana mutuli mwezi, they will be followed and they will be retrieved back to the country. That will see the future of the country. So we just pray for whoever becomes president or leader of that country after this conflict will unite the people of Zimbabwe. You won't kill people again. So this, because if you continue the ZANU-PF way of killing people in an independent country, there are long-term implications. Because as we stand now, most of ZANU-PF people, they don't want ZANU-PF to lose because they know they committed crimes. They know they are candidates of the prison. Most of them are mari dzekutiza kuenda kune dzimwe nyika. Vanongobatwa seuko vachikandwa majeri. Majudges chaivo varipo, they committed crimes. Vari kutya. So this is what is causing ZANU-PF to cling on to power. They are so scared of the aftermath of any disturbance in our country. So I am saying, ladies and gentlemen, there are quite a number of issues that you consider before you take this action. And I am telling ZANU-PF people to consider certain things as well. As I'm now pindra up, the phone, I think I'm using the same phone right now. So I cannot go to app because, kata presentation. But I'll answer you after this presentation. I want to join you. Pope John Paul. Saka, the horrors of today are the horrors that have seen Zimbabweans decide to say, look, let's take up arms against these bandits. That must not surprise people. That must not shock you. If Zimbabweans simply decide to say enough is enough, let's grab them, let's go and fight. And this will profit, but I'm foretelling what is going to come if SADC fails to resolve this issue. if African Union fails to resolve this issue, Zimbabwe won't be able to assume chairmanship next year. It will be passed to a different country. So now, the question is, who is going to make a choice to become leader of a rebel group or of an insurgency? And decide, ask yourself, why do we need that war? Why do we need that war rather than peace? And what does that war bring to us in the country that we live, in the world that we live? Quite a lot of thoughts in the place. Because yesterday, I think, Panatanga this presentation, there is some namato. We're going to lead us from death to life, God. From falsehood to truth. When we go into war, I think the motto of Zimbabweans, if they decide to take up arms against ZANU-PF, is to say, lead us from death to life. That is the motto. From falsehood, ZANU-PF falsehood, to the truth, so people can see the truth. We are fighting for the truth to be seen. So let's move from false to the truth. People, they need to move from despair to hope. If you are if you are fighting a war, you must ensure that your war will lead people from being despair into hope. You need to give people hope. You need people to move from fear to trust. At this juncture, people, they fear their government. They don't trust it. But you need to ensure that people trust your government. I pray on a daily basis to say, God, deliver us from hate and to love. President Chamisa has prayed that. Ndakanzwa chinamata mwemusi mwemunamato kuti ndakati mwana uyu asi abatwa nemweya muchena waMwari. He was talking. Achitanga munhu apinda pastance. Achitaura achiti, God, deliver us from hate to love. From war to peace. I heard Chamisa praying, saying that. Let peace fill our hearts. When ZANU-PF was butchering 𝗭𝗶𝗺 activists, Chamisa said, look, God, at our universe. Look at our world. Our world is our universe. He said, let us dream together for a better Zimbabwe. Let's pray together for a peaceful Zimbabwe, a peaceful election. Let's work together to make sure that we deliver the results we want. We want to build a country. We want to build one Zimbabwe. We belong to one world. So why can't we build one Zimbabwe of peace and justice for all people in the country? Ndakanzwa kubatikana when Chamisa was praying achipa munamato iwoyo. There was deep peace of the running wave to the people who were there. Deep peace to the flowing air for 𝗭𝗶𝗺 activists. They prayed for the quiet earth that they needed. Ladies and gentlemen, today, Zimbabweans should be shining stars after this election. We don't expect people to be arrested, people to be dragged before courts, just judges being bribed to incarcerate innocent people. Chamisa, a man of peace, son of peace, given to you by God. He has resisted a lot of temptations. Chamisa has shown you, like what I said yesterday. I quote from Desmond Tutu. When Desmond Tutu was saying goodness is stronger than evil. When he said love is stronger than hate. When he said light is stronger than darkness. When he said life is stronger than death, that was Bishop Desmond Tutu. I quote that yesterday, and he said, ladies and gentlemen, why as Zimbabweans are we allowing us to be treated as second class, as useless things in our country? Andimon. Saka matauriro andakaita nezuro. And the transition government is it now full stop. I am not sure where we are now. We are just waiting for the decision of SADC. Because already those elections were deemed null and void. That's the first good thing. The second good thing is that whatever government Mnangagwa forms is illegitimate. And on. So he needs just to play diplomacy to try and change with the time and space. Because if he doesn't do that, the type of politics he's playing is inciting contradictions after the elections. It doesn't help him. It doesn't help him because they have signed a lot of important concessions with the SADC before they become a member. Before Zimbabwe became a member, it had a lot of concessions that they appended signatures on. If they want to withdraw from SADC, they are welcome. But SADC is ruled. SADC is ruled. SADC has demonstrated its strength to make sure that the Zimbabweans achieve democracy as a democratic country. So full recognition of Zimbabwe government is only done not by use of military force, no, but by the results of a free, fair election that the SADC wants to see happening now. Every Zimbabwean, every country in SADC, it wants to see a free and fair election in Zimbabwe where people would be allowed to choose whoever they want to be a leader. And what did 𝗭𝗶𝗺𝗀𝗃𝗀𝗃 say, 𝗭𝗂𝗀? 𝗭𝗶𝗺𝗃𝗀𝗃 said, we should never use force to attain power. Because power that comes by force will create instability in Zimbabwe. So he believed in democracy. He believed in elections. The same shoes that President Tsvangirai wore are the same shoes being worn by President Nelson Chamisa. Yesterday I received a message that I wanted to convey to the president, but ndakangotya kuapa message iyoyo. Someone from inside sent me a message and said, please, can you tell Chamisa to leave the country as soon as possible? But I remember last time when I was talking to the president, he clearly told me that 𝗭𝗂𝘀𝗀𝗃, even if I leave the country, it's a long time ago when he was being attacked. I said, President, madi mambo buda mauya kana kuno mambo zorora. Vakanditi, when God's time comes, you cannot run away. Saka vakanditi, Mwari ndiye anochengeta. Kana nguva yawo yakwana, kana ndichiuraiwa nezano kunzi ndaurayirwa kunzi ndodada president wenyika inoyi ndinofa. Asi kana Mwari wati ndichaita president wenyika inoyi handisi kuzofa ndichaitonga. Is that good for 𝗶𝗃 sworn in? Yeah, it's very good. It's very good, Rhinos. We spoke a lot about that, and I'm one of the people who supported their swearing in, because we are in a war. Kana waterera pandatanga kupa presentation inoyi. I said Zimbabwe is in a war. So when you are in a war, you obviously fight to liberate certain zones. Those seats that were won by 𝗏𝗏𝗃 in very difficult environment are liberated zones. So you cannot let those liberated zones sleep again, because we hope to liberate more. So if it was an armed struggle, all those constituents will be under our control. And ZANU-PF kana masoja enya anenge asingapinde imomo. So that was the best thing that these guys did. Because these results were obtained in a flawed election. Until a decision has been made, this is when we will give another decision. Currently, they need to be there to represent liberated zones. So if we move away from liberated zones, we've let the people of Zimbabwe down. So let's avoid to let the people of Zimbabwe down. Because we have liberated zones. We know now, when elections against 𝗭𝗶𝗶𝗀𝗽𝗀𝗃, we safely have those liberated zones. And we garner for more areas where intimidation was rife. So this is the best thing that 𝗏𝗏𝗃 ever did. I think I've answered you. I've answered this question time and again. And more. Because right now, we understand that there are no economic benefits in those areas, but they are liberated zones. People are enslaved by ZANU-PF, but in those areas, we've liberated the people. So if you believe in the warfare that I've just stated here, you cannot sleep off liberated zones. Because ZANU-PF is coming all guns blazed, fighting, arresting those members of parliament, fighting for them to be incarcerated so that they can grab our liberated zones. Kadema Wanga was in court yesterday. So ZANU-PF is pursuing their goal of trying to snatch those liberated zones. This is why you see before elections, they try to snatch 12 seats in Bulawayo. But we fought for them. Thanks to President 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗀𝗃, who fought for that. We might differ on certain things, but we cannot let liberated zones slip off our hands. No, we can't. So it's time for rebranding now, ready for any other action that SADC will start. Historically, we've got liberated zones where we say we are safely here. So Mnangagwa is now in America. I'm not sure. Could I get to America? I'm not sure. Or he's panicking. He is panicking. Those are signs of panicking. Because honestly, SADC is trying to find a peaceful settlement of this matter. We might have a series of negotiations with the participants coming from all 4 walks of political life to ensure that a transitional government is in place. Another election is held within a year or so. In a similar way, in 1970 elections were done. And I don't know, but this is my opinion. I am saying what 𝗏𝗏𝗃 did was the right thing. And ZANU-PF never expected them to do that. This is why you see ZANU-PF expected them to say 𝗏𝗏𝗃 will approach Malawi. And the Malawi was salivating ready for them. So these are the hearts of mind, ladies and gentlemen. Imi mbopa isando zake manu chamiso. Imi mbopa isando zake. Because the way he plays his cards, so Unosham Scott, how did this gentleman maneuver here? I am telling him, Mbopa ichamisa sando zake. Rosadi pane pambodi. I regard myself as a person who highly think guys, inini I use my brains. I don't want to lie. Kona ndakagara so inini I think. I really use my brains. I really use my brains. You know that sometimes unoshandisa pfungwa dzangu zvondofunga kuti I'll end up being mad panapa when I start thinking. But I've seen Chamisa thinking exactly or thinking things beyond my thinking. Unoza pane papo kuti ndofuoti dai president vadai. Dzingwa ndotombowasendera message ndakashatirwa. Dzinoverenga, hadziregere kuverenga. Ukadzifonera dzodaira. But dzinokupa answer imwe yekuti unoti, but hey, ukadzoka ukagara pasi futi ukatanga kufunga kuti but vati zvakati paipai. Then start thinking. You can tell no, the man is in the right direction. Urugona. Ane kama ka deterrence kanako so. Kuti kana ZANU-PF kada kuti idai so. Vanoona kune barrier. ZANU-PF kada kuti idai so. Vanoona kune barrier. Anotamba tsoro dzake zvakachenjera. Ndopa ndakaona kuti there is leadership power in that gentleman. And definitely he will become president of Zimbabwe. Eventually he will become president of Zimbabwe. Because if you look at it, ZANU-PF, if ZANU-PF increases its power, 𝗏𝗏𝗃 always equalize it. They always seek to equalize it by increasing its own power as well. Increasing 𝗏𝗏𝗃 power. So if 𝗏𝗏𝗃 alone cannot match ZANU-PF's might, then we are defeated. But look at what is there now. The might ZANU-PF is panicking. Its power has been reduced. And they are being said they have an illegitimate government. This is how President Chamisa plays his cards. I am telling you, if you don't read that one, if you don't see what I'm seeing here, you can tell what right. The ZANU-PF by increase the power yayo, 𝗏𝗏𝗃 equalizes it. And we wonder how Chamisa does it. I don't know. I don't know how he does it. I don't know how he matches ZANU-PF power. Nyika inomira so. Unonzwa vanhu vezanu vakuchema. Inomira nyika kuti nti aitongeke. Ndakambonzwa zichitaura kuti hanzi hapana anogerwa asipo. Uzoona wane bhibho usipo. The way he does his politics is something that beyond understanding of many Zimbabweans. Unoziva danga ari munhu anongoita react on impacts. Ngadai Zimbabwe iri on fire today. Ngadai ma buildings kana rufu muchinhuwa rufu muZimbabwe nasi. And on. But he has managed to contain the anger of the people. He has managed to constrict the legitimacy of ZANU-PF. He has managed to ensure that a common government can be set up anytime from now, from the people who win the election. The sovereignty of Zimbabwe is in the hands of Chamisa. He is controlling everything. He has got the power with him. He has done wonders so far. But I forgot the Supreme Court. Tichitaura nana 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗀 chimwe chirungu so 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗀 jeje. Chamisa akabva aisa joka. ZANU-PF yaperero. Ukada kunoona vana Jonathan Moyo ezvo unoziva they were outclassed. Ndopa unonyatsokuona kuti Chamisa ari mberi. He has outclassed the professors in our country. Vana Jonathan Moyo vainyora aendera kutrena mali apa tatakapindwa napongwe. Hanzi ndakutrena my election agents at 𝗏𝗏𝗃. I want to train them. tikazvita shoot down ndikati maya muna kupinzirwa ma-state agents panapa naJonathan Moyo. Now maakona ma-true colors ake. Honestly kuti tainobvuma assistance a big power weZANU. So we reduce. He was reduced by President Chamisa into just a spectator. What he does is just post on Twitter, he posts opinions which does not hold waters. The dictatorship yake is dead. And what? Dictator chake chakabatwa unzi. Chakanzi kutaura kwa Twitter so. Hakuna Mnangagwa kwa kufamba achienda, hakuna. Saka, if you see, ZANU-PF has been weakened now. Mnangagwa is no longer trusting anyone. He only trusts his family, his children, Wazukuru, Waninina, Wana. They all form a government. ZANU-PF, as I'm speaking, it's a divided party, a party in disarray. A disorganized party, as I'm speaking right, based on the current cabinet appointed by Mnangagwa. That cabinet is unreal. I see the reflection of ZANU-PF here. The people remember Muzanu Chaima Havamo. Adibona. Saka, it speaks volume, ladies and gentlemen. Kuti kana muri kwa muri uko tichitaura wana shepherd mbotiteererai, because we talk about the stability of a region and stability of the country. We talk about the competing forces in our country. Apakaipa kuti ZANU pairi kuda dai yojoka Chamisa wavharira zvake, because he is red with all barriers. Anyway, ZANU-PF cannot move. Yakabatwa sonzizvi. And more. Saka, ladies and gentlemen, koma oveti vabvisa mutsvangwa. Obvious, they don't want him. They don't want him. Because haasi a reliable war veteran. Ndo vanhu vaichekwa muromo nguva dzehondo wewe. That's reliable. Nasi ari kuti Mugabe hatisi kuona ma-skyscrapers, you are appointing vazukuru vako muma-positions. Munhu waitaurira kuisa vachabva appointa vana vake. Saka it's all up to them now to see. Kuti hapana real balance of power. Hapana. My gents. Ndataurisa inini. Zakutoenda kuma-revenue ukuroko. Ndichiparidza, ndichitaura, ndichionesana. Vanga vane mubvunzo, tabvunza. Andimona. Saka nyaya yatangu, ndaakupedzisa. I'm going to wrap my presentation now. Pane mumwe munhu anga achindibvunza. Ndibvunza tone message yacho ichirimo here inenge yasvika maimanje. Pane question yandiri kubvunzwa panapa. I think so far I've answered all the questions that the Zimbabweans have. I've said the way forward. Problem yadapo ndakupedzisa chitaura nyaya yenepotism. Nyaya yenepotism. Kuti chauraya ZANU nhasi ndosaka muri kuona ZANU-PF is now a political party yaane mazvake. It's because of nepotism. Mazvake amuri kuona ari kuitika muZANU-PF is because of nepotism. Unoziva kuti ndakanzi nemumwe munhu haukona chirungu, ndikati handisi kutaura chirungu. Kana ndichiti nepotism hachisi chirungu. Word nepotism is not English word. No mistakes anoita vamwe vedu vasikade kudzidza kuverenga. Mukatarisa pane bhuku randoda kukuratidzai. Where is that book, man? Pane bhuku randinoda kuratidzai panapa. Anoda kuti muverenge mazimba. Pane bhuku randinoda kuratidzai panapa. Hanzi Shepherd Yuda ugone chirungu. Andimire kudzidza. Andimire kudzidza. Muri kuona bhuku iri? Rasakara zvaro, but hey, I love this book. Rakanzi English Made Simple. It's a very old book. Very, very old book. Rakanzi English Made Simple. Kana uda kudzidza chirungu, this book was, first edition of this book was done in April 1967. And the last edition of it was reprinted in March 1978. Rakanyorwa nema British nevarungu varidzi English. Ndo vakaita bhuku iri. Wanda kudzidza English, go look for this book. Ukaripedza, ukaripedza iri, unenge wa champion in English. Kana vanhu vakakuti haudzidze, hauzive chirungu, indoseka vanhu vakandiri handizive chirungu. Ndogona kutadza uchitaura. But kana ndakuchinyora ndokunyorera chirungu chekuti kana neunoti ya balance rakaenda kuchikoro. Nekabhuku ikaka. Saka kandidzisa kuti word ndasikazvizivewo. Kuti word rinonzi nepotism. It's not an English word. It's a borrowed word from Greek. Nepo means a nephew. I know what kind of mom's guys say, but I'm totodzisana futhi. My duty to teach you. Nepo means a nephew. It's not an English word. It's a Greek word. So nepotism is the unfair use of power in order to get jobs or other benefits for your family and friends. When the English people borrowed this word to put it in English from Greece, being a Greek word, they say they gave it a definition to mean that it is an unfair use of power. But an president Wenyika, I will use that power of being a president to get jobs and benefits for my family, jobs and benefits for my friends. If you look at the cabinet of Mnangagwa today, he has used his powers, stolen powers, illegitimate powers, to give jobs to his family members, to give benefits to his relatives. And my friends, Agana Chiwenga, Nana Mnangagwa, Nana Muhad. So, it's not all about family members when we talk about nepotism. We talk of even friends. Zuri say, Casson. We talk about even friends. So, the word is just a polite way of saying, look, I've brought my son to be your boss, to be Deputy Minister of Finance. But chiziva manje kuti iwo kana ungochimhanya uchiti idipfe. Uchihopa kuti maybe Idi akawina. Jonathan Moyo used to hope kuti Idi akawina. Jonathan Moyo will be appointed Minister of probably Information and the likes. Idi did not appoint him that. Ahukura aneta Jonathan Moyo is still in hiding. Saka Mnangagwa politely showed Jonathan Moyo, you are going to write Shakawanda say, I will never appoint you as minister. Mnangagwa is HIV positive. Takazvinzwana Jonathan Moyo. He is the person akataura status ya Mnangagwa kuti Mudhara is HIV positive. Achinza ice cream yakadya kugwanda. Mudhara yakanga apinda pa amene mapiritsi anga atadza kushanda zvakanaka here. Anga potse anga akuenda pakoma. Izvo takazvinzwa na Jonathan Moyo. A lot of secrets about ED were exposed in a Jonathan Moore. Saka, that nepotism on its own, in my benefits are. I know Mnangagwa is appointing his family members, his children, and his close friends into government because he sees them as honest people. To him, those are the benefits of nepotism. He sees them as people committed to help him. If it is destroying Zimbabwe, he will be destroyed. Because he knows these people's personalities, and they are known personally to him. So these people he is appointing into office as ministers, they are loyal to him. He's giving them positions because of their loyalty. Because of his brains. I salute you, Tinashe, for that. Changirai, mdara agataura mugaba agata, list rese randaona apa, hapana anoqualify besides Chamisa. Pane zvaangaona. Zvaakaona ndo zvatiri kuonawo. Zvisiri kuonekwa navanhu vanoti pfepfeya. Because if you look at Mnangagwa, when he is appointing these people, he's looking at the level of trust that these people have in him. And to him, when he look at 𝗭𝗁𝗀𝗽, a good example, he thinks 𝗭𝗁𝗀𝗽 has got better business knowledge. So to him, these are like things that Mnangagwa looks at and he say, let me appoint my son because of loyalty. Let me appoint 𝗭𝗁𝗀𝗽 because he has got better business knowledge. But he does not know now that there are drawbacks to his nepotistic behavior. His favoritism to these people, it will hinder the growth of ZANU-PF. ZANU-PF as an organization will go down. Because the interest of ZANU-PF people, kana vaivaimboti pfe vaneta manje. Vakuona takati pfe hapana cheda. Vaingomhanya kudya machikeni chete. Chikeni iyi ndo zvawakabenefita. Chikeni iyi nemachips. Just that. Ndachitaura mupano yanga achiti aita double mark time. Mukoma chichi Zim only needs common sense period. Definitely. Aripo mupano aita double mark time akaisa maoko panavo. Matai zake, they were more than parallel to the ground. Matai aisvika muchest. Achimba, ndikati ya, mpana ari kushanda. Vamunangagwa ona iwo mpana. Apa akaonda, aioneka bhemba remusoro iri. Ya, aioneka bhemba remusoro, kuonda nge mosquito. Ndakatomufuka anorwara pa ndakaziva kuti inzara. Azinasi azonzi makambo wakakanwa mombe yamai ndiyo ngozi yavari kupara andimona. Saka uri kuona problem ine nepotism manje, it increases risk yaMnangagwa because he will operate in a hostile work environment. As a president, you don't need a hostile work environment. You need a friendly work environment. Because kuna Minister of Defense, kwakazara vazukuru vake, Minister of Justice, Secretary of Justice, Maneshamwari, all the ministries. Zviri kufamba ere Eustace. Saka that will create a hostile work environment for the president, and the country will never move forward. Chirupari is a country is moving forward. Now there's a lack of fairness in every institution. Because mwana wake waisa, hama dzake anenge kwakarora anenge ane chi. So government becomes a family affair, a family, a dynasty for the Mnangagwas. This will lead to dissatisfaction of even ZANU-PF supporters. those madalas vakaenda kuhondo vakabatsirana nana Mnangagwa kuti andeitinyorwa hondo vachienda kunofira musango vamwe vakadzoka zvaazvirema. They are benefiting nothing. Zvirema zvaitofunga kuti chatoitawo maministers kana hondo yapera, but maministers kwakuya vana emunhu wamakaenda naye kuhondo wamakabatsirana naye kufamba naye musango. So this will lead into dissatisfaction. Saka magrudges ava hapere manje. Already pano magrudges akawanda. Imbotererai, I want you to go back to the videos and listen to the videos when Mugabe was being removed. What these goons were saying. So you will find that these grudges, they will never end because of nepotism. Because the rest who have been left out, they will never prefer to work under Mwana Mnangagwa. Imagine, could tinema war veterans, my professor, my chief, those guys who are supposed to be running Zimbabwe's finance, they can't be given opportunity. Can't be given opportunity. So those ZANU-PF people, they will never work in an organization like ZANU. Tungamirwa nema personal relationships aMnangagwa. Tungamirwa nevana vake vasina ma skills and knowledge. Pane vanhu vane ma skills and knowledge. Saka urikuona kuti mataito avari kuzvipanana nema responsibilities avari kufana kutora ekuti Zimbabwe iende forward, they will never work. These people will never succeed. Saka, if things does not work in a political way Zimbabweans want, the next 5 years Zimbabwe will be stagnant, no development. This is where I was saying that Zimbabweans are likely to be armed and fight an armed struggle. Because the problem now is the morale in ZANU-PF is very low. As Mnangagwa himself has appointed his relatives to key positions, has promoted his children, has bypassed ZANU-PF guidelines and the constitution of Zimbabwe as well. So this has spoiled the morale of the whole organization is ZANU-PF. Right now I'm talking of what I heard within ZANU-PF. The whole organization's morale is down. Remember, Titano Gadasana Obedugutu, who joined ZANU-PF hoping to be elevated into senior positions. Wanagadasana Tinomuda Msango, Tinomuda Nuya Yagaba Kunugu UK, that lawyer, hoping to be probably appointed as Attorney General for Zimbabwe. Apana chawarikuana yesa. I think by now they are casing themselves. Because the level of contamination, irimu ZANU-PF government, cabinet, especially their government, it's a very loyal cabinet. In everyone, a sense of ownership, a sense of ownership is ZANU. It's unfortunate that the country will never grow. It will never go anywhere. Ndoda kuti mubate kutaura kwangu na nchitaura. Andimona. Because what Mnangagwa has done is a lot of effects. A lot of effects. Already ZANU-PF is in a chaotic situation where they will never do the country's business in peace. Never. Never. Because you cannot allow mwana wako to control my subordinates. Akaita sema wo veterans aya. Zvidhara zvakaendera kuhondo mahara. Kuti wewe kana wazo president, employer vana vako, employer my relatives ako. And on. What are the other ZANU-PF goons benefiting out of there? Saka vai takaenda kuhondo, takadai so kufira mahara. You did injustice to the people of Zimbabwe. You created a situation where Zimbabweans were tortured and suffered. A lot of Zimbabweans died. Kuti mungoramba muri masubordinates at the family kwa Mnangagwa. Akusina chamuchawana. By now kana une 85 years, after 5 years unenge wane 90 years more veteran zvatovharana. So ZANU-PF has got a way of dealing with nepotism if they want. If they want, they can deal with this nepotism. They can deal with it. Because what you need to do now is to start discussing openly your concerns. Make sure that in Mnangagwa, your concerns reach Mnangagwa. I'm advising ZANU-PF now. Ensure that your attitude when you are reaching Mnangagwa is professional. Because once you cross his line, Mnangagwa, you are gone. Nakachitaura nemfesi wangu. Akachitaura kufa kwaZimondi. Zvikanzi Shapiro taigadha pamba paZimondi. Zimondi akanzi Zimondi asunzwa zvakanaka. Ndobva kwatumwa manesi. Zvikanzi endai munomuita COVID test. I'm not sure kuti manesi akaenda havana ndiwo akanotakura zvinhu zvazvine COVID vakanesa kuna Zimondi. Zvikanzi hanzi takasvika tikanzi vanhu vakasvika vakamuita COVID test. Zimondi uyo. Vamuita COVID test manesi. Hanzi mufana enda andakagara hangu panze. Handikaona vanhu vachitaura vachimuita COVID test kumba kwake. Zvikanzi takazoona komishina abuda takura kabhega ari kupinda motikari vachinzi vakutoendeswa kuchipatara. Handikasara takagadha tikatenderera pamba pai usiku hwese. Mangwana tinonzwa kuti Zimondi afa. Munhu akabuda mumba make akabata bhega achifamba achienda kuchipatara. Mufana yanga intaura zvikanzi blazi takashamisika. Tikabva tanzwa kuti Zimondi afa. Saka ndiri kutaura kuti Mnangagwa anokukiliya sekuseka. Uchaona a lot ipapa kusvika patoenda panext election panenge paumburuka mawo veterans akawanda ipapa. Vana Chiwakaya vakaumburuka marimwe zuro. Ataura akati aiwa nyika yakuda vafana vakadzidza. Vana Chamisa vakahwina vapei vatonge. Zvikanzi akuona. Ndobva akachiwa. Kudherera. Aiwa anodherera mudharo. Saka, I'm just warning my veterans that when you are approaching this issue, when you are discussing your concerns about the capture of ZANU-PF by the Mnangagwa family and the government, exercise caution. Exercise caution. Because I've given you a specific incident. Yes, Mount. Agabaroa pass. Saka pane nyaya varume. And then I'm just telling ZANU-PF kuti ZANU is a political party nema written guidelines ekuti you can enforce them. Vana Mnangagwa vanobviswa. Pakuda vote of no confidence chete against your ZANU-PF president and remove him. Remove him. The way you removed Mugabe, remove Mnangagwa. Because now you are not going to earn anything, ladies and gentlemen. You are not going to earn anything. Murukufa magadaro him. Shirega indi presentation yam. Na ishte orandigat. ZANU-PF nepotism ya gara. Government yese ya appointwa wana muri yako Mnangagwa. Saka Mnangagwa is sharpening a double-edged sword through his nigrini and shatauri. So if you not handled properly, ZANU-PF is no more. Unless a better person is appointed to lead, to provide stability in ZANU-PF is an organization. As it stands, ZANU yaenda. Because the current leader of ZANU-PF is an unsuitable person. Is someone who has got no heart, who has led to the shutdown of ZANU-PF. Because wana kuti vana vangu uyaitidle, azi kunokwaita dopi wako mana, uyaimose, uyaitikambure, zvatovharana. Andimona. Saka ameno zvaakwamuri inini handingakutaurirei zvekuita, but I've just warned you guys in 𝗏𝗏𝗃, and I've given you what I believe you guys must start doing. Because chashata munyika medu ndicho nepotism iyo necorruption zvakauraya justice system yedu. Hakusina kwokuti unogona kuenda uchiti handitotamnanga kwatomuendesa kukoti hazvibvumirwe. Kune mutemo wekuti hamubvumirwe kumcriticize as president. Ukamcriticize, there is a penalty for that, and you always hapana munhu akacriticize munhu anga kwaanoenda kukoti achinzi not guilty, anongosvika achinzi guilty and you will be incarcerated. Saka hapasina fairness, hapasina impartiality kumajudges edu. They just issue punishment yavanoda. Tine vanhu vakagara 10 years vachinzi vauraya mupurisa vasina mhosva yakapara. Mnangagwa does not have respect for people. 𝗏𝗏𝗃 has lost respect for people. Andimona. Saka zvava kwamuri guys. Inini ndangoti tingopanana hedu chi kurumana nzeve 5 minutes to 11. Dirihora vagomana. Dirihora rembanje vanogara mudiriho. Vakomana vanogara mudiriho. Dirihora rembanje gara mudiriho. Dirihora iro vanogara mudiriho. Dirihora rembanje vanogara mudiriho. Vakomana vanogara mudiriho. Dirihora rembanje. Asaka mapa jobs creation, he has managed to create a handful of jobs so far for his family and friends. How about the rest? The rest murimu dirihora vagomana. Dirihora rembanje vanogara mudiriho. Vakomana vanogara mudirihora. That's kunyadzisa kupfuura pakaipa guys. So he does not respect, your president does not respect the will of the people, the will of God. He said the will of the people is the will of God. The voice of the people is the voice of God. So God's justice combined, God's immutability combined, it ensures God's judgment. Pamberi apo pane nyaya. Pamberi pane nyaya apo. Because God has got his justice. I'll buy a very good example. Sandavara. Kune murume ainzi David wemuBhaibheri. David found comfort in God's justice. Because one day, God will make all things right. Believe me. Ukazwa President Chamisa achitaura kuti God is in it. One day, God will make things right. All the wickedness of the wicked will come to an end. And I'm not reading our 𝗭𝗶𝗺𝗃 7 verse 9. Oh, let the wickedness of the wicked come to an end. The wicked shall be turned into hell. Ukakondinya kuverenga 𝗭𝗶𝗺𝗃 9 verse 17. Rinokutaura kuti the wicked shall be turned into hell. Ukaenda kwaPisarema 31 verse 17 inokutaura ichiti, let the wicked be ashamed and let them be silent in the grave. Mwari vane nzira yavanoita nayo. God will make everything right. Will make all things right. Ndichangosvika chii chikuiti masvika ndanopedza mukumatafadzo. Hanzi we know that the kind of boss who overworked and underpaid his employees will be dealt with. This is what God says. We know that corrupt politicians will face God for their mismanagement and the suffering they cause to the people of Zimbabwe. We know that greedy business people will answer to their business practices. I believe even owners of pollution-based vehicles will answer to their neglect. God will make all things right. Vaudzei vana Mnangagwa kuti don't get too excited. Don't get too excited about a flawed election, about a stolen victim. I say who unto you, men? Desire the Lord of God, because there is end near. Zimbabwe is a country in darkness which needs light. Ukaenda ku book of Revelation kunotaurwa zvakawanda. Ndakaita Bible kuchikoro. Musazonyanya musika kuti madzibaba vari kukota Bible. Ndakaita Bible inini. Takaita religious education for grade 1. Ndakazorega Bible ndam form 2. Pandakaverenga zvandikutaura kunana varoma takavaverenga. Kuti Zimbabwe is a country that will be turned into hell and fire. It will be the lake of fire. I don't believe in the Bible. Some baba same story. But mama verse in the day of judgment there will be only 2 kinds of people. Judgment is soon. And say ye to the righteousness, that it shall be well with them, for they shall eat the fruit of their doings. Woe unto the wicked, it shall be ill with him, for the reward of his hands shall be given to him. Anzachakowa zvaakarima ndozvikutaurwa pano. Saka mona ndikutaura varume ndikati chiregai ndipedze. Ndikarambe ndikaparidza ndikaenda ku favorite. Unoziva kuti favorite book rangu muBible rinonzi 𝗭𝗁𝗃𝗃. Ndinaro Bible rangu panapa randombo tikana ndafunga kuda kunzwa nezvedenga ndinoverenga. Riri kupiko bhuku rangu? Bhuku redenga. Iwo bhuku redenga uya. Mavhesi andiri kuverenga aya. Ndachiverenga kana zvangu zvaya ndoverenga Bible. Iri The New Jerusalem Bible. Kabhuku akaka ndokane mavhesi andiri kupaya. Ndirombokaverenga zvangu kukaita kunge kanovel kaka ndichinzwa ndikaenda kuna 𝗭𝗁𝗃𝗃 7 verse 15. Ndacha kunyora pasi kuti mavhesi acho topara chipanana. And there is not a just man on earth that doeth good and sinneth not. Hanzi hakuna munhu asingatadzi panyika. So our justice system is not perfect. Vanhu vanofanira kuzviziva. Hakuna asingatadzi panyika. Munhu wese anotadza. Adamu chaiye akasikwa naMwari. Adamu kuna vamwe vanhu vasinganzwisise Bhaibheri kana vasinganzwisise kutaura kwaMwari. Inini ndobhilivha kuti Adamu anga ari the first person akasikwa naMwari. Eve akaita the second person akasikwa naMwari. But Adamu akatadza. Andiona? Eve akatadza. Hanzi Eve she took of the fruit thereof and did eat it. And he gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. Vakatadza vesa. Andimon. Ukaenda kuva Roma 3 verse 23 noti. For all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. We are all guilty of not conforming to God's law. Because by allowing a flawed election, by allowing someone who did not win election, we have sinned before God. Because Mwari ndo wakatipa masimba ekunovhota. Saka we are all guilty, ladies and gentlemen, of not conforming to God's law. Kuregerera munhu asina kuwina election achiba nyika achitora nyika achiisa vana vake vachidya vega. Saka mutongo wakapuwa Adamu yawo unogona kutiwira tikasarizina zvakanaka. Adamu ndiye murume akatanga kutadza pavarume vese, but zvakatipa rufu mukutadza kwake. Takabva tapuwa rufu, ndoyakanga iri judgment yedu. Rufu rwakauya kumurume wese zvikanzi uchadya cheziya uchafa. Saka tiri kufa nekutadza kwatakaita. Saka tiri kukondinya kuramba tichikomita sin by allowing Mnangagwa to continue to rule Zimbabwe. Takutiramba tichingotadza vana Adhamu. Ngatigadzirisei nyika iyi. Because matadzira atikuita ukaenda kuvaRoma, vaRoma inokutaurira kuti they which commit such things are worth of death. Kunzi isusu tiri kutadza matadzira atikuita we worth of death. We are all condemned under God's justice. Because we are allowing zvinhu zvisingafanirwa kuve zviri allowed. Mnangagwa should not be president of a country. We are allowing him. Tikukondinya kutadza, hatisi kuteerera zvikudiwa naMwari zvavakaisa mubhuku ravo. Saka zvibvunze kuenda kuvaRoma 9 verse 14 vanenge vachitaura vachiti, what shall we say? What shall we say then? Is there unrighteousness with God? God forbid. We need to stand up, ladies and gentlemen. God will one day judge the world in righteousness. Ngatisarega kuzojajwa isusu. Hatichada kuramba tichitaura nyaya dzeBhaibheri, ndoshatirwa. Andimona. Saka ndati dirihora vakomana. Dirihora rembanje vanogara. Because Mnangagwa is a lawbreaker. That man is guilt. Saka be found on the righteous people, where you are not guilty of breaking God's law. Saka zviri kunzi, let's take his command. Let's remove ZANU-PF. Good night. I am divine. I am asked to come. Go Diamond self. I am sinner. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. Saka isusu ngatite zvinhu zviri right zvokudiwa naMwari zvekubvisa Mnangagwa. Ichava nhoroondo,ka kana tatenderwa naBaba kubvisa Mnangagwa. Ichava nhoroondo,ka